Integrating social and emotional learning into content areas. For this assignment, the task was to create a child-facing activity that integrates social and emotional learning into another subject. In the following lesson, the subject chosen is STEM, with a focus on engineering for a preschool classroom. The idea for this lesson grew out of a need in my own program for the children to take turns in creating the rules for play. Understanding the perspectives of others is an aspect of pro-social behavior that needs to be present as children create the narratives of their play. Each child contributing to the story allows different perspectives to the detailed storyline that directs their play. However, if only one child has input into how the story unfolds, other children may lose interest and conflict may disrupt the deep emerging rhythm of play. There are many aspects of SEL in this activity, but the overarching SEL focus is considering the perspectives of others by helping students to understand that other people have ideas and to consider their ideas when playing. When considering the perspective of others, this incorporates the emotional side of social emotional learning, where students need to recognize other people's feelings. Other aspects of SEL included throughout the activity include some cognitive areas, which would be decision-making, problem-solving, remembering instructions, and creating and carrying out a plan. The social aspects are cooperative behaviors and resolving conflict. In preparation for the assignment, I had an idea to create a lesson, implement it with my own preschoolers, and then have this awesome presentation where students were collaborating, taking on the perspectives of others, using pictures and videos to show what they had done. This did not work out. It was not successful. And I realized that major adjustments needed to take place for this lesson to be meaningful where true learning could take place. In revamping this lesson, it was obvious that there needed to be plenty of learning prior to the implementation of the lesson, where the lesson would be the culminating activity to assess what was learned and what direction to move to solidify or extend what was learned by the students. What I would do and will do differently the second time around is to include some of the following activities over a course of several weeks where the students would have opportunities to practice what they have learned before we started this activity. First thing we would do was have a lesson on taking turns. We would watch together Season 1, Episode 1 of Bluey, Magic Xylophone, where Bluey and Bingo are playing a game of magic xylophone with their dad. But Bluey is not letting Bingo have a turn. After watching the show, there would be a discussion. We would ask questions like, how did Bingo feel? Why did she feel that way? What was the problem? And what did Bingo do? How did Bluey respond? Was the problem solved? What can we do if someone is not taking turns? On a separate day, we would revisit the Bluey episode, asking similar questions, but include their experiences about taking turns or not taking turns. We would read some of the following books: They All Saw a Cat by Brendan Wenzel, Look Up by Jung Jin Ho, and Duck Rabbit by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. Each book would need to be read at least 2 times, with a few days spaced in between, before introducing a new book. And after each book, there would be discussions about how the perspectives of others was different inside each book. might practice taking turns by playing some board games with, of course, some teacher scaffolding. To add to the learning in this area, the teacher would need to be a keen observer and support children when seeing opportunities to scaffold children in using the strategies that had been talked about regarding taking turns and trying to understand others' viewpoints, referring back, of course, to prior discussions, videos, and stories that had been read. Another way of learning on this front would be during group time, when the teacher would ask children to share thoughts, experiences related to perspective taking. Recently in my childcare setting, the children have been using the idea of riding an airplane for the narrative of their play. So I decided to capitalize on their interest and introduce some learning about airplanes. We have talked about airplanes, watched some videos, read some books, and added additional materials to augment their play. The culminating activity for the purpose of this assignment will revolve around creating an airport. Student objectives will be to collaborate a plan, design it, and build an airport with the materials of their choosing. Throughout this process, students will use a badge to designate whose turn it is to contribute their ideas. The materials for this assignment will be either Duplo blocks, bristle blocks, or wooden unit blocks. Instructional methods would include direct instruction on perspective taking, which would have taken place prior to the activity in the weeks before. There will be a whole class discussion, some student-led brainstorming, and then skill practice and a debrief. The lesson introduction would include a review on prior learning about perspective taking, and then acknowledging that today we are going to recognize other people's ideas while playing. Talk about what are some things you can do if somebody has a different idea when playing, and then explain the details of the activity. For the main activity, children will work in groups of 3. Together, they will collaborate on what kind of building that they're going to make, what materials they'll use, and how they're going to make that building. Those 3 aspects the teacher will scaffold, making sure that the children are wearing the badge, giving their idea, and then passing it on to the next child so that they can have an idea and share it with the group. Then the children will build, and the teacher will take pictures throughout. The teacher's role during the activity will be to circulate between the groups, observing and offering scaffolding as needed. The teacher will also reinforce when she sees perspective taking by reinstating what she sees so the children can connect what they are doing to the goal of the assignment. The teacher will also interject open-ended questions to stretch the students' thinking. To close out the activity, there will be a discussion that will take place in 2 parts. First, the children need to leave their creations as is and move to another location in the classroom. Personally, what I would do is have the children move to the table and offer them a snack. And then while they are eating, we would have a discussion about the SEL aspects of the activity. Then when we were finished, we would have the children return and play with what they had made. On a different day, I would do part 2 and have the children share what they had made using copies of pictures that had been printed beforehand. Of course, during both discussions, the teacher would ask leading questions during the discussion based on the observations she had made while the students were playing. For assessment purposes, there will be anecdotal notes taken during the activity. Here's some standards that were touched on during the activity.